So let's talk about Andre for a second. You know, Andre Norman's childhood prepared him for nothing less than a life of crime and violence, and eventually led him to be sentenced to over 100 years in prison. During his 2-year stay in solitary confinement, Andre had an epiphany. Imagine that. And he made a decision to turn his life around. And after serving 14 years, he walked out of the doors of prison as a free man. Now known as the Ambassador of Hope, Andre's experience and expertise is what empowers him to help people turn their situation around. Help me welcome Huge Summit Inspirational Andre Norman. Andre, welcome.
Walter, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you know, I'll tell you, this guy is absolutely legit. I do a drug and alcohol meeting down at the homeless shelter down at Cass, and I was sitting there with Andre, and you know how people make casual statements of, hey, Andre, at some point, sometime in the future, you and I should go down there and we should have you talk. And he's like, when? And the next thing was like, how about we do it tomorrow? I said, Andre, it's 10:30 at night. I got to go home. Then and he's like, make it happen. So we were down there with 2 hours sleep. And then the next thing is I had a client whose daughter was trying to commit suicide. And I ran into Andre, and he's like, I'll be on a plane today to go see them. So Andre, your commitment of who you are and what you've become is just, it's touched me, and I know it's touched a lot of others. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and just do your thing.
Thank you, Andre.
Well, I definitely appreciate you having me on the show. It's an honor to be here. Well, my life story is kind of simple for me, but it seems to be extraordinary to other people. My mom married a high school sweetheart. She had 2 kids. Her husband went to prison for robbing banks. And she meets my dad, a local drug dealer. She has 4 more kids. So I got mom, dad, 6 kids. Everything's great, except for my father had a habit of beating my mom. So I grew up 1, 2, 3 years old watching this happen. And I didn't know that this wasn't normal. I thought this is all it was because I wasn't really allowed to go outside at 3 years old and visit other people. And this is what I went through. I just came to a place of accepting that violence is acceptable. And this is how life works. We got to be 7 years old, 8 years old. We got enough to go to school. So we started going to school, get on the school bus, go to school, play with the other kids. Life was great. Until one day we're riding home from school and rocks crashed through our bus window. And behind the rocks came some names. There was a lot of bad names. And it was white kids throwing rocks at us. There was a federal judge who signed a law that said black kids and white kids would go to school to make the world a better place. Nobody told me. And we didn't go to a white school. Our bus just went through a white neighborhood. And the kids protested and they rallied against us. And that's just how life was for us. And then one day the rock started, one day they stopped. And for my mom, one day the beating started, one day they stopped because my dad left. So now you got a single mom, 6 kids living in the inner city. You kind of know the story. We bounce around. Me and my younger brother don't do well in school. We're kind of left behind. And by the time we get to middle school, it's just all bad. We realize that we're poor. We don't have what the other kids have. And what made me start in criminality wasn't wanting to be tough, wasn't wanting to be superstar. Kids in 6th grade are mean. If you don't have the cool stuff, they will let you know it. And I felt horrible about going to school every day without the cool stuff and the stuff that all the other kids had, and my mom couldn't afford it. So I had to go to the park. I didn't have to. I chose to go to the park after school and sell drugs, marijuana, to get the money to buy the stuff so I can be accepted. And what it did for me was told me and showed me that if I do wrong, I can benefit. And if I benefit, people don't care where the money comes from. At least that's what I thought. And by the time I got to high school, I was just a complete mess. I'm running around with guns. I'm in a gang. I'm just out of control. And I'd love to tell you that nobody tried to help me. There were a lot of people who tried to help me. But my problem was, and I shared this earlier today, was I refused help from everybody. Mr. Bevilacqua, my 6th grade math teacher. Mr. McDonald, my 7th grade English teacher. Mr. Herman, my track coach. Miss Ellis, Miss Moore. I can give you every teacher that tried to help me, Mr. Duval. I refused all of their help because in my mind and in my heart, subconsciously, if I allowed them to help me, then my father could never come back and take his place, the place that I was holding for him in my head. And so I just refused all help, and I kept drifting and drifting to one day I found myself in court. I got that 100 years and 18 years old on a bus going to the penitentiary. And I'll tell you, I was scared to death. If anybody ever tells you they're going to penitentiary and they're not scared, they're lying. When I got to prison, I'm nervous. I'm a wreck. I don't know what to do with myself. But I made up my mind, you know something? I'm going to go in here. I'm going to go out fighting. When I walked into the prison dorm, all these guys walked up to me and they were my friends. It was all my friends from the dummy class, all my friends from special needs, all my friends from the principal's office, all my friends from juvie, all my friends who got kicked out of high school, who quit band, who quit football. They were all at the prison. They said, hey, Dre, where you been? We knew you were coming. And they were like waiting on me. It was like a big giant reunion of all the people who just didn't do well. I realized something that day. Prison wasn't just for criminals. We all committed criminal acts to be there, yes. But prison wasn't really for criminals. It was for people who quit. I quit on all my teachers. I quit on all the activities and all the opportunities. And this is where I ended up. But I didn't look at it like that. I looked at it as like, yo, life treated me a bad hand and it wasn't my fault. I was blaming other people. So I spent the next 6 years of my life just fighting every day. There's no other way to put it. And fighting not for respect or for protection, fighting because I was angry. I was what you call an angry black man. I had a lot of issues, and prison was a perfect place for me. And I just fought every day. And when we start talking about money, a lot of people don't understand there's a lot of money being made in prison. Hundreds of thousands of dollars are being made every day in prisons. Quick analogy. Prison with 2,000 people. If 50% of the people are drug addicts, that's 1,000 people. A bag of heroin inside a prison will cost you $50. So if you can sell one bag to every addict, that's $50,000 on a prison yard every day in heroin sales. And you add in cocaine, you add in marijuana, you add in gambling, you add in alcohol, you add in, it just is, people aren't in there fighting for colors. They're fighting for money. And that's what makes the whole thing run, is who's going to dominate the prison commerce market. And I learned how to do that. And I became really good at it. And 6 years in, I was one of the bosses. I controlled a large percentage of the market, and I was living well, I thought. And my mom came to see me one day, and she was talking to me, and she said, how did you get in jail? Because I always stayed in solitary confinement. I said, Mom, I'm working hard in here. And she looked at me, and she was kind of sad, and she walked out crying. I'm thinking that she doesn't get it. I'm a boss. I'm the boss in a prison full of grown alpha men. Why are you crying? There's no better place to be, a boss than here. And she's like, my baby gone. And I just kept on that path until one day I had my epiphany and I realized that I'm the king of nowhere. There's a lot of people doing well in their own space. I was in prison and I thought I was winning. You could not tell me that I wasn't winning, because in my mind and in my space, I got it all in control. I didn't look at the fact that I'm locked into a cell. I got a toilet next to my bed. I can't go home. I don't have a refrigerator. I'm wearing orange. It's just all these things that I psychologically overlook and to serve the purpose of I'm winning. And I said, well, I'm the king of nowhere. And that just was a fact. So what I did is say, I don't want to be the king of nowhere. I said, so what do I need to do to become out of this prison? I said, well, I'm here. I tell myself the hard truth. I'm uneducated. I'm Black. I have a violent history. I got 100 years. I don't have family support. I'm technically homeless. I don't own a home. I don't have an apartment. I just went down a list of things that I was and told myself the truth. And you really don't have a shot in hell of getting out of here doing so. I just told myself, I wrote it all on a piece of paper. Then once I wrote it down, I started saying, what do I need to do to fix this? I stopped thinking about it. I put on a piece of paper and I looked at it and I dealt with it. I said, well, for me to be successful, I need to go to a university. So I picked Harvard University. I came out my cell the next day and I told all my friends, you say gang members, hey, I figured it out. I'm going home and I'm going to Harvard. They looked at me like I was crazy, like I lost my mind. They said, you can't go to Harvard, Dre. I said, why? They said, you're Black. You're a gang leader. You just tried to kill people the other day. You're inside. You sell dope. You fight. You're good at this stuff, man. You're our leader. You can't leave us. And I was like, nah, this is a better way. This is the way. And they just couldn't hear it. What they were really saying is, we can't go with you. The best thing happened that day and the worst thing happened that day. For me, the worst thing was my friends abandoned me. The best thing was my friends abandoned me, because had they told me, you know something, Dre, we believe in you, we're going with you, that I had 20 gang members trying to get out of prison and go to Harvard, which would have never happened. The fact that they left me meant I had to go by myself, which made my path plausible. 20 guys who can't read and carry knives going to Harvard was like a real stretch. But I went back to school. I got my GED. I went to counseling because I had an anger management issue. I went to the law library, taught myself the law, and I started looking for mentors and ways to build and better myself. And for the next 8 years, 20 hours a day, every day, I didn't sell drugs. I didn't fight. I didn't play basketball. I worked on my criminal case. I worked on my character. I worked on my integrity, and I worked on my plan of going to Harvard. And as you said, I walked out. I started working with poor black kids that looked just like me. Went prison, parole office, youth center. There's a room full of little black boys in juvie about to go upstate to prison. And I told them, you're going to jail not because you're black. You're going to jail because somebody denied you and they haven't showed up for you. And you're disappointed and you're hurt and you're acting out. I started working with those boys from the day I got out. Then they asked me to work with the girls. I started working with the girls. It was probably like a year in, and somebody said, hey, Drake, can you come work with the white kids? I said, white kids? White kids ain't got no problem. This is their country. They own everything. They got everything. What they need my help for? Then I finally went to a white school. They drink, they smoke, they got bullies, they self-mutilate. They got fat kids, white kids. They even had a dummy class. They had all the same problems we had, just in a nicer building. So when I walked out of there, I said to myself, never again will I judge somebody based on my ignorance. I'm just going to be helpful. And I started going around being helpful. If they called me, I show up. That became my motto. If you call me, I'll show up. And I started working with kids across the country in different spaces, and opioids happened. And all these white kids in the suburbs were suddenly dying from drug use. And a lot of folks in the city was like, they deserve that. Because when we were dying, nobody came to help us. Now they're dying. The world's in the uproar about an opioid epidemic. It wasn't an epidemic when black kids were doing it. But I started getting calls, Andre, there's a kid over here that needs help. And I would go help him. I'm good at helping people in crisis. So I started helping white kids in crisis. Matter of fact, the first time I came to Phoenix, I was down in Phoenix and I got a call from Michael Burnoff to go help a kid. And I told my friends, I'm going to help this kid. He's kind of on the edge, drug addict, and he has problems. They said, well, where is he? I looked, I said, Scottsdale. They said, don't black people live in Scottsdale? And they were telling me, how are you going to go help that kid, Drake? They never came for us. When we used to sell weed, we were criminals. Gave us hundreds of years. Now they made it legal and they sell weed, never let anybody out of jail. When we did heroin, we were criminals. Gave us hundreds of years. Now their kids do heroin. It's an opioid epidemic. They got counseling and therapy. Man, how are you going to help them when they didn't help us? I looked at my friends, or that's what they wanted to call themselves. I said, this 15-year-old kid didn't make a law. He didn't make a policy. He didn't take a stand. He's just 15. And regardless of who his parents are and what they believe, what they did, he deserves to live. And I'm going to help him live. I got in my car. I drove to Phoenix. I drove from Phoenix to Scottsdale, and we helped this young man, and he's doing excellent today. See, I have a 15-year-old son, and I would be highly upset if somebody looked at my son who was in need of help and said, because your father used to be a criminal, because your father used to be a gang member, because your father used to be, we're not going to help you. And that would crush me. If my son died because people refused him help, not based on who he is, but based on who I was, that would crush me. So when people take the stance of divide and conquer or separate, I don't believe in that. Now, I do believe Black Lives Matter is a thing that needs to be, and there's a large space with that. And the thing with Black Lives Matter that most people get confused of is, don't all lives matter? What about white lives? What about blue lives? The concept of Black Lives Matter is, there was a time in this country when Black lives didn't matter. During slavery, Black lives didn't matter. During Jim Crow, Black lives didn't matter. During the 70s, Black lives didn't matter. What they're really saying is, can Black lives matter now? It has nothing to do with anybody else. There's not a time in this country where white lives didn't matter. There was not a time in this country where white lives were under siege or felt that there was under siege. So for blacks, the concept of Black Lives Matter is nothing against anybody else. What we're really saying is, can we matter now? Because we don't like the way we're dying now. Like, we didn't like it before, but we definitely don't like it now. And when I look at this, I've been getting calls from a lot of companies from around the country, because I had a lot of white friends. They asked me, Dre, what do we need to do? How can we fix this? And I say to them, we need white people to stand up on our behalf. Slavery did not end because black people got tired of slavery. Slavery ended when white people from the North said they had enough and they stood up for us. We didn't start the Civil War. We just benefited from it. So right now, we're at that same crossroads in America where The racial divide is in the platform we're having discussion. And I'm saying we need white people to lead this charge so that we can actually get, again, emancipated part 2 from the treatment and the mindset and the stigma that people are still holding on to. There's a lot of people who let go, but the silence of the people who know better, it kills us faster than anything else. So right now, those people are no longer being silent, but they're trying to find their space. So I'm happy to say that I'm working with anybody and everybody to move this conversation forward so my kids and your kids and everybody else's kids can have a great life, because we have the world's best country. We have the world's best economy. We have the world's best system. And we just need to have the world's best people on one page. But I've been out here for now 20 years. I've been home. And it's not easy. It's definitely not easy. I have issues sometimes with mentors, but I can't make excuses. I have to say, Andre, how do I get better? I was in Phoenix a year ago with you at Genius Network, and I work at Genius, and I wanted to be out there 20 years removed from prison. I work at Harvard Law School. I work at London Business School. I've worked at the White House. I've worked around the country. I've worked with Genius. I've saved people's lives. But yet and still, I could not rent an apartment in Phoenix or Scottsdale or Tempe because I had a criminal record from 25, 30 years ago. They said, oh, 1985, you had this felony, we won't rent to you. So I can be discouraged. I can even be upset, but I can't quit. I have to say to myself, I forgave myself, but not everybody will. And if you want to call that discrimination or just a long memory, call it what you want. But that's not going to be the thing that stops me. So I find a way around it. It's been a year workaround, but I'm still working on it. It's not a guaranteed 2-day fix. And I get up and I come out here. It's about, do you have the vision? You have to be able to see your way through. When we start talking about finances and money, that's great. You can have all the money in the world. We've had a lot of famous people commit suicide. So money didn't save them. We just lost Michael Jackson and Prince back to back, 2 of the greatest artists, and you throw Elvis and Kurt Cobain on that list with them, and John Belushi and thousands of others who couldn't manage the money or the fame. So there's a lot more to it than being rich or being famous. You have to be grounded. You need good mentors, good support. You need to have integrity and accountability. And most of all, you have to have a purpose. What is your purpose for being here? My purpose for being here is to help people. Bill Gates' purpose initially was to make that wonderful program called Microsoft. Steve Jobs made the iPhone. What is your thing? Ishan, financial genius. I'm saying marketing genius. That's his thing. His girlfriend, YouTube sensation. She found her purpose. There's no one size fits all. But we have to get to a place of saying, okay, inequality isn't just a black-white thing. And there's a lot of inequality against the youth, against the elderly, against Latinos, against gays, against a lot of folks. So it's all over the place. And when we sit quiet, we all lose. So purpose, direction, and vision. And when we speak up for what's right for somebody else, that empowers somebody to speak up for us. Because it's not what you say in front of people, it's what you say when you're not in front of people that matters. And I'm here. I'm here because, Walt, you're a great guy. You said, hey, you don't have to go serve the homeless, but you do because it's in your heart. And when I hear it in your heart, I'm going to meet you where you are. I meet people where they are, not where they say they are. So when you say, hey, this is what I do, I'll do it with you. And that's it. If you say somebody's in need, if we can keep somebody on this planet, I will go. I don't need to know them. Don't need to know them before, during, or after. If I have the ability to keep somebody on this planet and give them a shot at life, then I'm going. Because somebody gave me a shot. I had a mentor. I had a bunch of mentors. I got a saying, I collect mentors. And there's a lot of people who've shown up for me. It was never based on me being black or me being anything. It was based on that they saw the value in Andre. So when I look at people, I look for the value in them. And I try to find that value and show it to them so they can see it. So sometimes it's just a handshake. Sometimes it's a hug. Sometimes it's a pep talk. Sometimes it's alone. Sometimes I just go, let's go down to the homeless shelter and just talk to them. It's in you. It's in you. Stop thinking, what can one person do? What can one person do? I heard that so many times. What can just one person do? Well, one person can change the world. Doesn't take 5,000. Just takes the one who cares. And for the moms who are watching, if there's a thing like, oh, okay, what can we? I'd rather have 1,000 white soccer moms coming to my rescue than 50 grown black men who are angry and upset. Because them 1,000 soccer moms are organized, disciplined, focused, and they ain't quitting, and they're going to be heard. This is the other thing I have to tell the truth to. As a black man in America, there's a lot of places my voice isn't heard. White soccer moms are heard. So I want to get it done versus it be me. I learned a long time ago, it doesn't matter who says it, as long as it's heard. So right now, we want to come to a place of, how do you start over? I've had to start over several times, and that's okay. I mean, it's part of my journey. And some of you are going to have to start over. Whether you leave, I mean, I've seen some kids who live in some really big houses. And I thought at first, oh, they got it great. Look at this. They got 2 cars, 4 cars, got everything they want. I couldn't imagine being 15, living in a $6 million mansion, feeling I have to get one of these. Because that's what it's like. You feel the pressure to outdo your dad, or at least live up to that. That's a lot of pressure. That's like, I can't imagine being 15 and not having a dad and having to struggle. That's a lot of pressure too. But it's pressure nonetheless. And when we start identifying and accepting other people's pain, not their pain is less than because they dress a certain way or drive a certain thing, you never know what somebody's going through. You can't look at anybody and know what they're going through. You have to sit down and ask them, bro, how you doing today? Sister, how's your day going? And then they're going to tell you I'm fine. Then you have to be able to press past that. Show them that you care. And my strongest gift is not speaking, it's listening. Because people need to be heard. People deserve to be heard. Whether it's on the issue of racial inequality, whether it's on the issue of youth and finance, youth and power, the next generation, we deserve to be heard. Everybody does. That's why you were given a voice. So I want to slow down here, Walt, and pass it back to you. But no excuses, no regrets, and we're going to keep marching.